Oh, coolio. Well, I guess I don't have to worry about seasonal candles anymore, and it's just the usual dailies. It's the usual daily missions without having to worry about, like, seasonal candle stuff. My name is Flicker, and I've been indecisive, as per usual. It's like, do I want to go through Deltarune again? To try and just salvage or... Part of me wishes I could go back and just run through Deltarune again without any of the knowledge I have right now. In a way where you would be able to see all of my initial reactions to things and whatnot, but even if I were to do that, uh, somehow, I'd have to remember to keep talking, to keep being open and everything, and that takes effort. Which just doesn't suit me very well. The things I'm comfortable with talking about aren't in the realm of, oh, I'm going to talk about my gameplay decisions next. To me, that feels a bit tiring, even though it's also more engaging and interesting for the viewer. Quality of Triumph, missions, and the usual route. Alright. Right. Well, okay. In some regards, I know what I want to do with my life, but I don't know how to apply myself in a direction that gets it done without feeling overwhelmed. In another regard, I don't know what I want to do with my life because there's a part of me that wants to try doing everything. And there's a part of me that wants to live my life in a way that helps other people. Or a part of me that wants to live my life in a way that solves problems. Or provides stability. There's a lot of different ways that I feel is both real to me and yet also has its own issues. I don't know. Hmm. 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 I tried restarting Deltarune all over again earlier today, and all because I wanted to remember to use the cell phone and everything, and it's like, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, I should go back around to this game and do, like, a fresh run. When I've finally forgotten a lot of the key information or what's going to happen next up until it happens in game. And that's going to take a while. Because unfortunately for me, I remember story beats and key details pretty quickly. Sure, I may not remember every detail or how to do every single thing, but that's just the thing. I'll remember enough to where my brain will automate it for me and be like, oh, this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen, and oh, you don't need to pay attention to this. And I really don't like how my brain automates that all for me. Leaves me less curious about a game I enjoyed, just because I've seen it before. Sure, that gives me the benefit of seeking out new things, but when you run out of new things to seek, it's just being left and stuck in your own boredom. It's not exactly fun. Oh. Sure, why not? Admire the sapling. Oh yeah, I forgot to go get Cheerios and goldfish. I'll go do that real quick. Things to snack on. Alright, I'm back. I want something to snack on. That's actually going to fill my belly. Because I know if Lillian or one of the other gremlins with sass was here, they'd be like, why not snack on me? And it's just like, because you do not fill the belly. You're very delicious, but no. Interact with, socialize, enjoy the company of, yeah. What the fuck? Why is there a hug symbol over here? Game, please stop trying to control my camera. Well, that's all my missions done already. That was easy. Sometimes I wish I could go back to not knowing anything about a game and be able to, you know, just share the experience of discovering it with you all, but if I try to recreate that, even if it's with the sincerity of wanting to act like it, it's not the genuine thing. I don't know, would you be interested in seeing that silly recording of me attempting to play the game like I've never played it? Attempting to play through the game like it's my first time? With my current attitude? No, things I know shut me down. It's not always a gift. Sometimes it is a curse. Knowledge, perception, the ability to be aware. I still think you can play through that. Just have to be the right angle. And that's the tricky part. Oh, I also attempted to get back into, like, I attempted to get back into working on like tail anatomy ideas, or just like, okay, how do you consistently draw it and what's the justification for how it works? And I realized, sure, there's one way it could work, which would be combining some skeletal structure with some How did you design that to work? Because it's known that the human body and other creatures can inflate themselves and in certain ways. Pufferfish. Yeah, no, there's no good way to go about saying it. You can fill a certain part of the body, a blood cavity, with blood to stiffen it up, and then what would happen if there was like a skeletal structure around it to provide more rigid stability? How would you do so without it causing it to rupture or pinching the blood structure, the blood cavity? Weird anatomy considerations and thinkings. Because if you have to have, if I were to try and design my tail from an anatomy perspective where it's flexible, functional, and also like able to carry a good chunk of weight, have some strength to it, then it would come down to, alright, do I want to have the core of the tail be bone, or do I want it to be more hollow, like a blood cavity or whatnot, that then is just constantly filled with blood to maintain a somewhat rigid but still flexible shape? And then would I want bone around that blood cavity as like an exoskeleton structure that muscles can attach to and control? How would that work? Because again, we are simply just designing the tail still in all that theoreticals. And if that's the case, then how are we going to do the hand architecture and all of that? Because I want it to be a neat little trick of some sort where my fictional self can actually separate her tail in half and be able to have like two entire tails to manipulate and use, or combine them together, squish them together and have one entire tail that's stronger, but also also, how would the anatomy for the whole feathers and everything go? Because if I'm going to be covering the tip of the tail in feathers, then how the heck is the skin underneath going to handle picking up objects or the feathers not being there? This is like the level of thought and detail my mind goes into when world building, and it's why a lot of my projects and creations have just kind of stalled out, is because I get so intimidated by how in depth I want to do it, how I want to do things, that ultimately I shut down. I don't know how to prevent it. Been so what's kept me stuck. Getting overwhelmed by the very things I want to do is part of what's kept me stuck in life. an aspect of autism, and that gets in the way. Damn, that's record time. Then again, I'm willing to bet there were people far closer to it than me. Because I can visualize it in my mind as like what I would like to do, but to draw it out by hand would take a lot of effort and practice that I'm not sure I'm willing to invest, so I don't have money to invest in it yet, so there's that issue. Well, you can write out your idea. Yeah, but how do I describe it if I were to write it out? Hmm. Hmm. Soft body or hard body problem? I'm thinking soft body would give more flexibility, but it would also mean a loss in power, inability to exert strength and whatnot. Sorry, cross-referenced a point from like dynamic robotics, because I watched a video on how they're trying to design robots that can move through sand and get into really obscure or difficult places in order to do bomb defusal and to save people's lives. And in watching that video, it's like, huh, awesome. And that's where my brain went to. I mean, you could go for hollow. Well, you could go for the kind of bones that birds have, wherein and and that would be one way to do it. But that would be more useful for like the wings on her back than it would be for the tail. We're looking for structural stability and strength here, not weight reduction and flight capabilities. She can float above the ground, but she can't actually fly all that well unless she really puts energy and effort into it, which would mean altering her body's shape and design in order to do so. I got so invested in what I was thinking about that I forgot what progress I've made in this area, so I'm just going to just leave. I realized, oh hey, the wax not being there means I've already gotten that, probably. I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I... I don't have it not having enough memory space for getting stuff done in the background while I talk about what I've been trying, what's intrigued me, what's on my mind. Also, how is the body anatomy going to work when it's not even made out of, like, cute, regular muscles and bone either? Remember, plant lady. The biological integration between multiple different things that should conflict, but doesn't. How does that fucking work? Sure, electric slime can definitely be used as a replacement for blood, especially in absorbing nutrients and managing signals throughout the body. Oh, okay then. Got bonked right next to the candles. Wrapping the claws in jellyfish tendrils would be an interesting idea, but that would just make her even more dangerous in a way that I'm not really wanting to make my fictional self. The jellyfish tendrils exist there to brush against food and then have that food float upward into the jellyfish's main organ. So using the tendrils wouldn't main digestive organ, so that's not really an option. I know there's a species of jellyfish that actually lives really, really long, and that could be used as a component in another regard. But that would make no sense thematically, when we've already got the Ouroboros blood and the phoenix dust. As part of the ritual components. Adapt, update, revise, reorganize, details. Okay then, adapt. Respond. I know there's technology out there or that is working towards being able to project images from your mind via technology reading your brainwaves and whatnot, or electrical inputs, but don't think that's going to be reliable enough, considering all they got out of it last I checked was a fuzzy image. However, investing in that and making use of it would definitely be a good idea. Too bad I don't have anything to invest in it with. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Mm. Mm. Well, there's the prerequisite rituals to consider as well. Because the ritual that requires the ritual needed for a shadowless forest, again, requires banshees singing in key. How the fuck are you gonna do that? Because sure, you could offer positive incentives and get the result by carefully and thoroughly making sure that everything's okay. Yeah. The kind of banshees I'm thinking of would likely be like the traditional evil ones. Instead of like willing participant ones or ones that genuinely can get along with others without causing harm or problems. Because you need something unnerving as hell to cause shadows to flee from their origin and never return, never be recreated. To kind of detach them permanently and make it a genetic thing that passes down from tree to tree. So if you just had a regular, like, civil person with banshee traits, or a monster girl banshee singing in key, then it's not going to have the same effect or the same implication that allows for the resulting effect. Having horrible, horrible monster banshees that don't actually have and that aren't just wild creatures in ghost form, but genuinely like, malicious and malignant. Being forced to sing in key. Yeah, no, that would work. Because what's more unnerving than seeing an evil banshee singing in key out of fucking fear? I don't think there's something more unnerving than that. Which means I could use the jellyfish tendrils to make a kind of restraint device to help inflict pain and or help leave the like supernatural immortal or whatever fucking dude that creates the ritual grounds in the first place restrain and interfere with these harmful banshees' ability to do things. It'd probably be best to take them from a world where it is something that being a malicious banshee is something that they chose and not something that they were kind of forced into. So there would be that level of social filtering as well. So the immortal would also need a way to be able to scan, like, okay, is this banshee from this universe where they just chose to be evil? Or were they inherently made evil and kept choosing to do so, continue that trend? Or are they from a universe where it was more, or along the lines of something with that was forced into playing its role in order to try and feel like it still fits into society in one way or another? Because sometimes, even just to find acceptance or acknowledgement, people will play out horrible roles that others project onto them in order to fit in with what they're called. Which is really kind of a sad facet of life. I'm gonna leave solving that to proper psychologists though, because nope. Nope, nope. Huh. Let's see. So, choir of banshees singing in key out of fear. The banshees have to be of genuinely malicious and evil intent and be willing to kill things the moment they go free. But you don't want it to be... Well, if it's a creature that was born evil to be evil, that's still a creature that was just following its instincts. The ethical logistics of fucking getting banshees to sing in key in a way that's completely unnerving and serves as part of a ritual to fucking banish the shadows from trees. Oh, that sounds like such a convenient and easy piece of lore to figure out. That's where I entered the water. The shadow is from the animation. Yeah, no, I can think and respond faster in my head than I can speak out loud, and that's another thing that gets in the way of, like, making recordings. At the same time, not everything I want to say needs to be said or needs to be part of the recording. Just because a thought or a comment exists doesn't mean I have to say it. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Oh, I forgot about these. Okay. Roy! Motherfucker! Oh, that would be sadistic. Enchant some jellyfish tendrils such that they both give a shock of pain to the banshees for disbehavior, but are also the source of what keeps them from getting hungry. Ah, that would be sadistic. A sort of spiritual stabilizer that lets them not have to eat souls. At the same time, places them under a point of servitude. That sounds like an ethical enough solution. Because then, if the Banshee just doesn't want to do it, they can easily just tear out the tendrils and kill themselves. Absolutely, I would 100% find a way to leave a malicious evil Banshee with some sort of restriction thing if it chooses to live and it follows through, but it's not able to actually harm people. Like, yes, you've chosen not to die, and yes, you want to spite me and be able to fucking prove that you can't get this off. Okay then, let's see if you actually will go the mile. And if you do, I get to kill you. If you don't, then yay! You're frustrated until you learn morality. Is that cruel? Absolutely! Do I care? Not a bit, because you'd be willing to hurt other people. I'm not going to try and figure out the psychological and magical tests that would help such an immortal figure out it, that would help such an immortal find out whether or not the banshee they were trying to interact with, help, or recruit or capture, depending on the context of what the banshee is personality-wise and whether or not it was just made to be this way and it's serving its instincts or otherwise. Because if it's serving its instincts out of hunger and those instincts for on the hunger side of things can be satiated and it has no other hunting instincts, then I think keeping it alive and just slowly leaving it to teaching it how to live without causing harm would be one thing. That would be like the minimum end at which I'd say, okay, you do this. Well, yeah, that would be necessary. Hmm. There would also be situations in which someone would have instincts, but they don't want to be dealing with that. Dealing with those instincts. And in that regard, it would require a different solution, so they wouldn't be on the singing team, because then, well, that would nullify the effect of the ritual. After all, they would be willing because, well, the immortal would have helped them and avoid living out their life in a way that they didn't want to. So it has to be intelligent enough to be able to learn how to sing, malicious enough to where there's no chance of it learning morality unless it really just does not want to unless it thinks it's smarter than the immortal, in which case, okay, go ahead, try your luck. Or and malicious enough in nature to fulfill the requirement of the ritual for the shadowless forest. Because again, the shadowless forest would not just be a one-time thing and eventually new trees can be planted in to regrow the shadows. No, 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 no. We are taking the time to actually alter an entire batch of trees to be the same as their original state, but they just don't produce shadows because fuck it, why not? Hmm. And then I can use the... Actually, that would be a good foil and contrast, but do I really want to put the characters through that? Because if the antagonist is going to remake the ritual or do their own variation of it based on scrap notes and a hidden archive of previous reference points that they discovered before my fictional self could get a hold of them, then that would mean the antagonist would have some context, but not all of it. Which would then yet be another reason to keep the antagonist alive, instead of killing them outright, outside of just a moral code. I mean, there's also pettiness, but I don't really want that to be the sole reason why the antagonist lives. Like, moral code should be one, useful information, context, and rehabilitation could be two. And then being a petty bitch can be number three. Why did I go here again? I was meant to go to the Golden Wasteland. Because a lot of the ritual has components that serve a purpose, be it in the ritual mixture, the sacrifice category, the components category, or the environmental category. Because components and sacrifice are two different parts of a ritual. You can have components that get integrated into the ritual to provide certain effects, and then you have components that can be, and then you can have pieces and parts that are sacrificed in order to power the ritual and steer it in a certain direction. The sigil mixture also helps with the steering of that direction along with the sigil shape, so that would probably be another level to consider. And then the environment also plays a part in steering the direction. Because there's components you sacrifice to power the ritual, and then there's the components you put into that you use in the ritual in order to guide attributes and get certain results. Seems like a fucking nightmare. Yeah, and you're trying to reverse engineer a ritual that created me with only your own scrappy information as context. Hey, be happy you have a reference point. Oi! I want to leave. Thank you very much. You twat. Fucking cunt. But no, from that incomplete list for Usurper and the incomplete information she has, she'll include and incorporating components in what ways she can, but she won't actually understand why certain materials were used or were within the ritual space at the time of the ritual. Because having all the material components within range of the ritual space and the scale of the ritual space while also performing the ritual is a great way to cause bad effects to kick in. And that is part of what happened to my fictional self. When you involve components of the local area in your ritual, make sure to remove all unnecessary materials and/or components that are not required for the ritual ahead of time, lest you complicate and either destabilize or absolutely obfuscate the ritual's intended result, which could either end up with a hideous mess, a reality tear. Oh, sorry there, crab. Wasn't able to avoid you. And yes, we are trying to figure out the lore on the fly. Because we may not know the Wiccan or other components for the magic and how you would actually structure the spell. via traditional methods from my linked line's planet of origin or reality of origin, but that doesn't mean necessarily that we can't think up the components that would thematically be involved in one way or another, even if their application isn't the exact same as what actually happened. After all, if my fictional self is going to outlive me, then even if I have an idea of, okay, in my mind, what created her, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the whole complete ritual. It's just what makes sense to me. There could be a million other little details that affected the result and created my fictional self that I will never know. And that's kind of the point. Sure, my fictional self is meant to be strong, but she's not meant to be omnipotent. And it's an interesting thing to consider the power scaling of. Because, like, do I want her being able to only pick up, like, a haul truck's worth, hauling trailer's worth it full of solid gold without any gaps in terms of weight? Or would I want something else? Because if there's no scale limit and dynamic variables to my fictional self, then she just becomes kind of boring and predictable. And there's no real situations that really push her or stress test her limits. And that's another limit that I really do like, but I don't know how to explain with words, is that if the linked line does not know how to do something in their world, in the world that they live in, and my fictional self comes along and tries to help, she can only draw from likely reference points that have a chance of it still existing in the linked line's mind. She can't just pull bullshit out of nowhere and convey information that the linked line doesn't know, otherwise she'd be too obvious and then get booted from the reality. She can't tell you things you don't know, but she can draw from things that you don't even know you know. Which is interesting. And once she's an active part of the subconscious or the conscious, then she should be able to keep her own notes even if you don't keep track of things. But at some point, that then comes at a cost to you, where if she gets banned from the reality, you lose your battle buddy that knows how to do things that you've been pulling, some of the things you've been pulling off. Yeah, that seems like an interesting dynamic. Hmm. Because the whole point is to leave space for nuance while also allowing for consistencies that make the character fun and interesting. Mm-hmm. Oh, that would be a neat dynamic contrast. Or at least a self-balancing kind of scale, wherein the more absurd things that my fictional self does in within the span of a year, the more energy and resources and absurdity fragments it costs her to do further absurd actions. Because if it's unexpected and no one witnessed it, then it can be chalked up to some excuse. That's how she can kind of interact with the world, move around, and help people without even being known about in some cases. But should she find someone to, like, house her concept and be a link line to that world beyond just being like a spirit floating around and trying to influence things, then ultimately she would then have a constant observer who would expect more and more absurd things the more and more she does so. And that expectation itself would actually restrain her and force her to pay up more and more, because in order to subvert reality and also meet someone's expectations, to subvert reality in an attempt to meet someone's expectations or to solve a situation in a way that the observer knows is unreasonable or absurd, even just to a small degree, would it therefore be like reality observing itself and realizing, hey, something's not right here. Extra reinforcement. So she can do the most absurd things on Intriva until she's, like, well integrated into the history of the reality and acknowledged as a real person, despite however the fuck she exists in that reality, while working within its limits and yet contrasting those limits. Oh, yeah. Because then the resonance value would then be something that allows her. Resonance value or resonance scale? Resonance spectrum. You know what? Fair counterpoint. Resonance spectrum it is. Mm-mm. Oi, the fuck are you looking at from all the way over there? Bitch? If you're not gonna respect the rules, then why should I have to? Why did you fly in front of it? Why did you fly in front of it? Okay, the game paused to get through that. Got it. Thing you can do where you close the minimize and or close the application after pausing to completely avoid it. I think to some degree you'd have to go look it up to confirm. Because I don't really understand how it works, and I don't really intend to use it in that regard. After all, I'm pretty sure it's like a phone-specific thing, anyways. Human bodies suck. Okay, so a resonance spectrum, that if she fills out certain categories to certain degrees in certain ways, she's able to do new things without necessarily getting booted from the reality. Because history is one anchor, connection is another, and well, history would count as an anchor under connection. But it would only be like one category. There would also need to be other anchor categories as well. Oh yeah, no, I'm creating hell for her. Why? Because life is confusing enough as is. If I'm going to have an infinity to live in, even just as a fictional version of myself, and if she wants to actually get things done, then it's not going to be just simple, oh, just complete this plot point from A to B to get the result done. No, even beating the antagonist isn't going to undo anything. She's still going to be stuck in the same situation as before. She'll just have new opportunity available to her because she has a chance to actually get the antagonist to not only listen, but also learn the error of their ways and get to know the antagonist as a person such that they'd be willing to share that information once their like hatred or whatever. How do I even phrase that? Because in one part, the antagonist's hatred is rooted in obsession over someone who they cared about. And then on another level, they still think my fictional self is a genuinely bad person, and they don't really have much interest in getting to know her. But if you're kind of stuck with someone, eventually you'll get to know them. I'm not going to put an actual real person through that, because fuck no. That's just you either choose to stick around or you don't. Well, I mean, that's technically true up until you reach, like, the avoidant attachment spectrum. Ah, very good counterpoint. Murder. We're gonna have a call with Willow sometime soon. I think we'll want to actually get into a conversation about what the definition of dismissive avoidant, anxious avoidant, fearful avoidant, and all that is. So last time we talked with her and used those words around her, she was like, I don't think that thing's what you think it means, and if we're wrong, but if we just leave it unresolved, then we'll never know. And it will be a friction point in the conversation eternally. Thanks, game. You really were helpful. Anyone here? Anyone at all? You are right there. Please help. Of all the things to do, game, why did you do that? Why? They're probably gonna be living their own life and doing their own thing. It's okay if they don't help, it just would have been really nice if they did. Yeah, no, I should give up on this. I do want to know what this boat says, though. Been sitting there and glowing the whole time. Neat. Mm-hmm. I hate moments where my mind has the story complete but isn't willing to export it. Because it's like, oh, you want to reference that right now? Sorry, but the memory access is currently in the restricted area. Is currently restricted, and I can't fill in the gaps like you want me to. Also, excitement is unavailable, and thus you cannot gain access. Would you like to try writing without any passion or excitement? And it's just like, Write for writing's sake. Possibly. I hate the part of me that reaches for perfectionism because it's like, yeah, we could focus on how people are gonna think of it and everything, and it's just like, could we just get something done? It's been that way with every story we've wanted to write, and it'll continue to be that way for a long time until we challenge it. But of course, challenging it takes energy, and we don't always have energy for doing what we want to do, which sucks. Also, ow. Alright, I don't need to wait for it. It's the same fucking stupid perfectionist bullshit that keeps us from working on Daniel Duel, or on the other side, or any of the other story ideas we have. It's frustrating as hell. Almost. May I exchange dyes for a candle? No, I'll exchange candle for a dye. No thank you, that's not worth it. Trying to clear my throat in what ways I can so that way I can do the outro proper. Without having to go. To those of you who snuck by and saw a fragment of this recording, thank you. To those of you who stuck around and watched a good chunk through, I deeply appreciate it. I hope you all have a good day, good night, whatever time or non-time it is. If it isn't good, you're feeling stuck, lonely, lost, confused, small, scared, or otherwise. Well, I hope that things either improve for you, that the chaos both outside and within stays manageable enough, or at the very least that you're able to find a ledge to sit, rest, and vent from, without hurting yourself or others. My name is Flicker. I've gotten my Sky Dailies done, so I'll be seeing you all later. Bye-bye! Because why not have some random sounds at the end?